everybody, hope you're doing well. My name is Janie and today we're talking about how to sell a haunted house. I'm doing a book review. The first 5 minutes of this book review are going to be spoiler free. Don't worry, I'm going to warn you, and then we're going to talk about spoilers because this was a wild ride. So this is a library copy, hence the lamination on the cover. I finished this in like 2 days. It probably would have been shorter, but I was working long hours. So how to sell a haunted house. I didn't read the blurb or anything, so I had no idea what it was about. The first sentence tells you that the protagonist's parents pass away and she has to sell their house. I didn't realize they passed away, so I was reading this, and then when it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, there's something about the way this author portrays mourning and grief that was so good. It felt so real to me, and that's what made it almost even more disturbing when you get to like the haunted elements of the story, like the paranormal or the supernatural, because I wasn't even sure what the haunted aspect was. I didn't know if it was a ghost, was it demonic in nature. I didn't read the blurb. I didn't know anything about this book, and because of that, I kind of enjoyed it more. Some people are comparing this to a very specific movie that I also really love, and I'm going to mention it in the spoilers, even though it's not really a spoiler, but I feel like once you know what you're getting into, to me, I feel like it would have affected the way that I viewed this book. But anyway, let me talk about the basics first because I am rambling. Basically, you're following the protagonist, whose name is Louise. She has a beautiful daughter. She's like 5 years old. She gets the call that her mom and dad passed away in a car accident. The details are a little bit fuzzy. It was her brother who called her brother Mark, who she is estranged from, and she hasn't spoken to in a number of years. They have a strained relationship, and now she has to fly back to Charleston to sell the house that she grew up in. This is her parents spent 30-40 years in this house and all of its memories, and then as she goes there and starts looking around and remembering all these things from her childhood, the realization kind of sets in that the house, something's going on here. Something must have happened to their parents because things aren't adding up. There's creepy elements to it, stuff like that. I loved it. Like I said, the grief, like the first part of this book didn't even feel like it was gonna be about a haunted house. It felt like you're just dealing with the protagonist, with Louise, and losing her parents, who she loved obviously, but you know, she also had a strained relationship with them, or just they're overbearing. Her mom was very eccentric. She had all these puppets and these dolls that she would make, and she was a part of a community of like puppeteers and stuff like that. So like I haven't lost my parents yet, thankfully, but something about that aspect of this book hit really hard. And like I said, it didn't feel like it was going to be about a haunted house until you get there, and then those details kind of help. There's an airplane flying by, but once you get to the creepy part of the book, like once she's exploring the house and she realizes things are moving on their own or there's weird noises, it makes it even more daunting and disturbing because earlier in the novel, everything was so normal. Everything was so grounded in reality. So I love that part of it. I really felt connected to these characters. I absolutely hated Mark, just like the protagonist did at the beginning. I thought he was so irritating, so rude. They were fighting over like rights to the house for a little bit in the beginning of the novel, and I 100% felt the anger that the protagonist was feeling, Louise was feeling, when like they're going over the will of her parents and stuff like that. I absolutely love the writing, like I said. As for the paranormal aspect of it, I thought it was creepy and fun. Like, it does get campy, it does get crazy, it's like over the top. I feel like this would make a really good movie. That part was fun and funny, like there's funny aspects into it. You kind of just have to go with it. I feel like for some people it might be a little too campy or just a little silly. Like it rears off to like the silly aspect, but I really loved it. I thought it was amazing. The character is dealing with these ridiculous like situations where she's just like, what could go wrong next, but also at the same time grieving her parents. And like I felt that was such a realistic, the way everything's described is so realistic, and I'm going to talk about that in the spoilers in a second. But love this book, I highly recommend it. I'm obsessed. Now I feel like I have to read the other novels from this author just to see if they're as good as this one. So that's it for my spoiler-free talk, and now we're going to talk about what's going on. So Child's Play is the movie that this book is described as, like a similar version of Child's Play. So you're dealing with like possessed dolls, or you don't really find out until a little bit later why this doll in particular has haunted not only the house currently now that the parents are gone, but just Louise and her life. Like she has some bad memories attached to this like little puppet doll thing. It was creeping me out, and I thought that was so sad. Like to me, it's so sad that Louise moved away. And I don't blame her for that. You know, living with like an overbearing mom, I totally understand that. So she moves away for a number of years, and like her adult years, and then, you know, has a baby and all that stuff. And meanwhile, her mom and dad are like stuck in this house prior to their death, dealing with like a possessed little monster, and it just makes me so sad. And the fact that they end up passing away and that they were attacked and she was trying to take her husband to the hospital and that's how they passed away, that's so sad to me. It's not even the main part of the story. That's just what happens. And then from there, Louise has to, you know, figure out how to sell this house or get rid of the possessions, or are they going to keep it and their sentimental value. And then dealing with Mark, who, like I said, I hated at the beginning of the movie, who I hated at the beginning of the book. Like, he's just gaslighting her and just so irritating and lashing out. And the part where she's like, you know, in her mom's eyes, he can never do anything wrong. But once you go back in memories and see like what was going on, it kind of makes sense why he was kind of coddled in a certain way, because he was also dealing with possession issues. It's like they're both dealing with similar issues, but because they weren't on the same page in their relationship as siblings, they were unable to confide in each other. And that's what makes the last line in this book so sweet. And like I said, I love the way she talks about grief. I feel like it's so real, and it shows that it's not a linear process and moving on. So she says, this is the last page of the book. It says, for Louise, it came and went. Sometimes it wouldn't bother her for years, and sometimes it hit hard. The worst was when she dreamed they were still alive and it had all been a terrible mistake. In those dreams, she was still 39, and when she got Mark's call, she called home, and this time her dad answered the phone and she talked to him, and then her mom, and she would wake up glowing. She'd open her eyes and sit up in bed full of energy and actually reach for her phone, and that's when she'd remember they were dead, and it would hit her all over again as hard as it did the very first time. When that happened, she felt a deep ache inside her chest, like her rib cage was being split open with an axe. When that happened, she needed to call the only other person who knew how this felt. When that happened, she called her brother. So something beautiful comes out of this traumatic experience, and that Louise and Mark kind of get to mend that friendship and realize that they're each going through some major traumatic issues. This whole time, they didn't even realize it, and the other thought the other was selfish and like, oh, you don't care about this family, but really they were dealing with some stuff. And I feel like that's just very relatable, and that can resonate with a lot of people. I know this is a little scatterbrained. I'm still kind of getting used to doing book reviews. Like, I took notes and everything, but then I just started going off like on my own because I'm not writing it word for word. I'm just like writing out like little details that I really enjoyed about the book. But yes, I absolutely recommend it, even if you know what's gonna happen. I got a little bit spoiled, like some of it was a little spoiled to me, but at the end of the day, I thought it was amazing. Like, there was a little twist with why that doll is possessed. I know we're in the spoiler section of this video, but honestly, you should just read the book. But basically a ghost, but I was spoiled on that twist, but I still enjoyed the book regardless because I thought it was so good. Anyway, if you made it to the end of this video, let me know if you've read this book. What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I can definitely see why some people wouldn't like it because it's just it gets so ridiculous as time goes on. But for me, it was a blast, and I'm happy. This is the second book I read for February. I have been reading really long books lately, so I haven't done as well as I did in January, but we still have half the month left, so I'm gonna try my best. Anyway, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. It was an airplane flying by. I'm sorry. Until next time, bye.